Serverless360, we started the project something like 18 months ago, something like that. So initially we started off as a concept, similar to what we had done for BizTalk and BizTalk 360. We felt it's a similar need is required for Service Bus, because the messaging from people coming from an integration world, messaging is the key. And if you look at the current scenario now, Service Bus is the messaging platform what you have. You really don't have much option. If you're into messaging, Service Bus is the option for you to look into. So we thought we saw there's a lot of gaps in terms of, from an operations and, managing it. So the Azure portal is kind of limited in terms of what you can do with the Service Bus. So how many of you are using Service Bus Explorer here? Right. Okay, so Service Bus Explorer is a great tool, and Pablo was trying to address that gap. And of course, Pablo is a full-time employee with Microsoft. I don't even know whether he's still working with Service Bus. I think he moved on, and it's a kind of a open source product. So that's something we wanted to address, that gap. It's more than what the Service Bus says. Just give it as a context, as an example, like why we are looking into addressing that gap. So in a similar way, we wanted to provide one platform, operations monitoring and analytics for Service Bus. So now I think today's an important day for us. We are repositioning that product in a different way. I'll go through the slides quickly in terms of how the product initial concept started and where we are heading with that product in the future direction. So you've been hearing a lot of talks for the last day and a half from Microsoft, and we are all fully aware of this new buzzword coming, serverless and everything. You don't need to worry about infrastructure. I don't need to explain this description, but just on a very high level, the serverless, the term basically means you don't need to worry about your infrastructure or servers or things like disks and CPUs and stuff like that. So you only worry about things which are you work on the platforms, and you don't need to worry about the scale. If you get today you're processing 100 messages per minute, but in the future if you wanted to process 5,000 messages per minute, you don't worry about the infrastructure. It will scale automatically. And also you don't do upfront investment. You pay per use. So you might start small, and as you grow and as your solutions get bigger and complex, you pay according to your requirements, basically, right? So these are some of the technologies what comes under this serverless, focused purely on integration background, basically, right? So now we are pretty much familiar with all these concepts now, because people like Dan and John Fancy and Kevin, and they've been talking on each one of those this individual technologies. Jeff spoke about functions, and John on logic apps, and Dan on event grid, and we all understand the usage of serverless. Most of this, if you look at how you use these technologies, basically most of this serverless technologies on silos, when you look at it as independent items, it got very less value, right? Because if you want to make sense out of an event grid, you need something on both sides, right? So you need events from, for example, from a storage, and that raises an event, it goes to the event grid, and then you call a webhook or another logic app or something like that. Same for logic apps as well. Okay, the logic app on its own, it's not going to do much. You need to put some connectors, and you need to talk to things on both sides to make any sense out of it. So this is all, as I mentioned, it's not going to add too much value on silos, but when you start putting things together like this, that's when you really realize the power of these technologies together, right? So these are some of the, I just did a quick search on a search engine, and then these are some of the images I got right out of a standard search engine. So these are the type of things what people are building now, right? Okay, you got something coming to Even Grid, and it spans out into logic app, functions, and webhooks, and things like that. And this is something what people started to call it as serverless apps, right? So this is how it's all looking. So I'm going to ask a question like, how are we going to manage this? What options do we have? So, okay, I'll rephrase it another way. How many of you are confident you can give Azure portal access to your support people? Okay, so that's the problem. That's the USP we wanted to address. Because we run some of our products on Azure, and we are not confident giving access to our own support people. You got fantastic role-based access and everything in Azure portal, but how many of us are willing to, go spend some time and set some permissions and access, and how are you going to do that? If you log into Azure portal now, all you will do is like things hanging all over the place, right? Okay, all resources here and there, and you're never going to get the visibility of this kind of, this is my app. So you're not going to get, that no application visibility. Okay, this is my simple serverless app, but I don't have the visibility how I'm going to manage it. And also I mentioned that Service Bus Explorer example. Some of the tooling are really, like a premature. Like you really, when you look at real production systems and you wanted to do something really concrete, the tooling lacks significantly in Azure portal. I can see as a company, as a Microsoft, it's very difficult for them because they need to set their boundaries. Otherwise, when you have, like 100,000 people and 100 different services, when everybody starts spinning their own portals, it becomes completely non-manageable, so they can't do that. In fact, they did it. If you look at the original version a few years ago, they used to have a portal for SQL Server, and they had a portal for BizTalk services, and they killed everything. And they said there's only one portal, Azure portal, and they wanted to bring everything into that portal. And that brings the level of constraint for the product groups as well, because they can only work within the boundaries of that portal, and that brings a tooling limitation. No consolidated monitoring as well. Okay, Azure portal got a good monitoring story. You can do a lot of metrics, but again, it comes back to the same problem of they are siloed, right? Okay, if a single logic apps, if it's a failing or doing something, okay, it's important to monitor that, but it makes more sense to understand the context in which that logic app is actually running. So that's the problem we wanted to address, and again, the security as well. So what we have done in the initial days is, as I said, we started this product as a more focused as advanced tooling for Service Bus. But now, based on feedback and our own experience, we are actually going to rebrand this product into Serverless360. Okay, let me quickly go through what it actually means. So first, the foremost is managing serverless applications. So as I mentioned, so what you can do is you can actually start grouping those entities which are relevant to your application. So it could be, in this case, you have an order processing app that got, for example, 2 queues, 2 functions, 2 logic apps, some APIs all put together as a serverless app, and you can say this is basically your order processing application. And that entities can actually come from different subscriptions, different resource group. As long as you connect your service principals, we can pull all those information, and you can start constructing this serverless applications, basically. And once it's there, you manage it from that point onwards. You start managing it as more like as a single applications. You're not working with independent entities, but you're working at a reasonable application level. So we wanted to also provide deep tooling, so like complete CRUD operations on all those entities, ability to resubmit, repair, and edit and resubmit messages. There are we identified things like if you have a duplicate detection enabled on a queue, and if you resubmit a message, you need to change the message ID of that message. So those kind of things, if you don't have this functionality, your developer is going to write a console app to do that, right? So that's a problem we wanted to address. And we also have some scheduled activities. Probably you may wanted to purge all those dead letters every day or something like that, right? So those kind of deep tooling is what we wanted to bring into the context of serverless apps. So this is more, right now the deep tooling is what we have for queues and topics, but in the future, we have roadmaps to cover deep tooling for all those serverless apps related entities. And you also can monitor those as a single entity. Okay, I am interested in what happened to my order processing app. I'm not really interested in what happened to this independent function or a logic app or a queue or something like that. So you manage it at an application level. Security and governance, again, so this is addressing the original problem I raised, because right now everybody is a bit skeptical giving access for the Azure portal. So here you give access to a serverless app, and they can only see things which are inside that serverless app. And we also address the standard auditing functions, like if somebody making property changes or somebody resubmitting messages, all those things are all part of the application. So we originally started this Serverless360 as a complete SaaS-based application. So we run the whole thing like how Azure is running most of the serverless things. But we hit a bottleneck, like a lot of our, government customers and healthcare customers, they're not confident to give their connection details to a third-party app like us. So based on the feedback, we now have a full private hosting option. So you can actually take this and host it on your own infrastructure. So you run it in a similar way how you can take BizTalk 360 and install it on your own environment where we don't have any access to it. In a similar way, you can run the entire serverless app 360 in your own data center or in your own virtual machines. So I think I'll quickly go through a demo. I want to show it's all real. It's not just PowerPoint. Okay, so this is how the application looks. So you can see here you have two choices. Either you can manage individual stacks. So when you want to have some kind of a deep tooling for your queues and topics and things like that, you can go and navigate via this, or you can go via this composite application route. So you can see we have a bunch of applications already configured. This is one of our production environments, couple of production environments. They got some entities. And let's take this example of this order processing application. So you can see this particular app got a bunch of queues, topics, and some logic apps. For some reason, I think they are disabled and it's not in a healthy state. And that could be part of your monitoring to get it done. So I can go to topics, and then I can say like I can see the subscriptions under this topic. I can also say like I wanted to maybe send some sample messages to this topic. And by the way, it's all controllable. You probably don't need to give send messages option to everybody in the team. So you can actually change the user access policy so they don't get access to this send message capabilities. So here, let me say I'm throwing some 5-6 messages. You send a message, and it's all get transmitted. So you get a very rich tooling for your day-to-day operations. Okay, my mouse. Okay. So it's there, and I can go to open up and see the one of the topics, and I can see if there's anything like dead letter messages. So there could be for the demo purpose we put some messages in a dead letter. So the network, okay, and then you can basically choose what are the messages, and you probably want to resubmit the message, and you can choose to which queue or which topic you wanted to resubmit that message. Let's say I'm picking up this duplicate message thing. So here, this is the original message ID, but you may wanted to change it to something like, order slash 2000 slash 18 or something like that, and you can resubmit it back. So also, maybe you can do multiple, maybe there are really sometimes, hundreds of messages you wanted to resubmit, you can go to resubmit, same concept, but this time, I can't go and type each one of them, say, okay, maybe generate message IDs, unique message IDs, so that you can resubmit it back. So it's all again coming from our own experience of, practically what are the things you will see on a day-to-day basis, and that's how we basically build the product. So activities, as I mentioned, there may be a bunch of things. Maybe you wanted to purge the dead letters on a daily basis. So you can, quickly see how it's been configured. You can do some of the activities regularly, like, resubmitting messages, resubmitting and delete, or you can simply delete the messages. You can, schedule it how you want to run it every day or every other day or, every Monday or something like that. And then, you can, once you save it, the system background jobs runs and cleans up everything. So monitoring, we have a really good use cases. Like I don't have only a couple of minutes, so I'll quickly show the important one. So we have this, historical data monitoring stuff. So maybe you may wanted to monitor your ingress rate at which the messages are coming into your system, and there may be some SLAs. So you can easily configure it. If I look at one of those failed ones, you can see there are a lot of conditions I wanted to satisfy in that particular queue or topic. So if it's not matching any of these things, the action failed item is, greater than 10, alert somebody, the runs completed is less than 1, you alert somebody. So you get, quite a deep tooling basically in terms of monitoring. So in terms of, composite apps, you can easily add stuff to the app. All you say is, associate resources. So you want, in the settings side, you go and, associate some of your subscriptions, and we pull all those things, whatever available in those subscriptions, and you pick and choose, these are the things which comes as part of my, serverless app, and then you can manage it as a single entity. We have a Service Bus 360 team here. So Arun, who is sitting in the front, is in charge of the Service Bus team. So if you wanted to get more info, please feel free to come and talk to us. Thank you very much.